Brian Gorey's testimony depicts the experience within the illusion of the American dream. Growing up in the affluent, white, Christian community of Bay Village, Ohio, Brian felt out of place in the midst of the mindless materialism and conservative politics. He discusses how educational institutions began categorizing students by perceived ability early, giving students a sense of superiority and inferiority. He also comments on how the cost of education preserves the power of the upper class by giving access to good education to only the few who can afford it. Brian was also uncomfortable with his community, and he left the Pacific Northwest, which was an empowering move that made him proud of his independence.
I was discouraged by my teachers and peers and segregated into classes based on intelligence and like a very early age. They kind of just told us that we would never amount to anything, and they always preached about the importance of attending Catholic high school, so you wouldn't end up working at McDonald's, or you would end up getting a good job.
Hi, and this is me, Ahmad Asgaf, on the location. This is Westlake Center, and I'm doing the Joe Cruder's testimony about class and case. And Joe Cruder's illustrated in his testimony that the middle class job is to keep the lower class people out of sight of the upper class people. And he referred to his job, which is he used to work in this apartment over there. And his job is to make people in that residence feel comfortable or worth with the how much they bought the apartment. Joe's job is to keep all of the lower class people out of sight of all the resident people who live over there. So basically his job, sometimes he need to shoo the homeless people out of the apartment or around the apartment, basically around here. Also, what the Joe said in his testimony is middle class is more sympathetic to the homeless people, while the upper class is more to hide it. And that's all about Joe's testimony about class and case. From Ahmad Asgaf in the location. Thank you very much.
Symbolism of the tie to me means a little bit of growing up and entering the real world. And as I did so, I had to wear a tie for my job. And as I'm tying the tie, I realized that I'm hiding this narrow end, this ugly side of the tie, behind the flashy side. And this Windsor knot right here just represents the middle of it. And I made that seem like the middle class.
Hey, Dan Fury shares his experience about class mobility by starting with a memory that his older brother had while living in Los Angeles, California, recalling every house near their block had barbed wire running along the top of the fence, and the elementary school his brother attended had bullet holes in the playground slides. He then talks about his experiences living in a small town outside of San Antonio, Texas, and the Dallas suburb of Coppell, Texas. Dan then moves into Bainbridge Island and recalls how it was ranked the number 2 place to live in America by Time magazine. He also explains his definition of class and caste by referencing it to his family's combined history, experiences, mannerisms, and education, not to the neighborhood or the amount of money in his parents' bank account.
Always been middle class because that's what my parents, it's how my parents raised me. They raised me to be middle class. And I have lived in super affluent neighborhoods, and I have lived in neighborhoods that weren't so affluent, but the guiding force has always been kind of my middle class heritage.
Philip Funderburk's testimony, Warrior Caste, examines his role as a U.S. soldier coming back into civilian society from serving in Iraq. He describes being shunned by the civilian population for being a part of the warrior caste, furthering the distance between him and the people outside of the military. Philip discusses the difficulties of soldiers who try to utilize the GI Bill to return to school. With the amount of paperwork involved with obtaining financial benefits for education, most soldiers give up. Philip describes the trauma that can occur from the training and the stigma attached to seeing a counselor in the military. Asking for help is seen as weak and can even lead to threat of losing a job. This creates an unhealthy population of men and women who deal with their traumatic experiences in dangerous ways like substance abuse.
But I have a lot of intense energy. Half of it came from being in the Army, and half of it came from running around here, you know, in the punk rock days of my youth and getting in trouble. If everybody decided to put down their weapons, who's going to stop me? People like me, because we won't stop doing what we do.
In the testimony Generation Y, Dylan Gillies observes the notion of social class as a large sector of what we refer to simply as an umbrella of class. Dylan uses personal experience, all of which are pulled from his educational experience, private elementary and middle school to public high school, Garfield, to show the economic status as determining a social status, resulting in a more significant class ranking. The U.S. does not have a defined caste system. However, Dylan's argument is that our prominent and powerful class system has transcended its ordinary functions into a sort of social caste.
Actually, right now, because being a white man, haven't had to experience that much. Like white privilege, I suppose I kind of knew it was there, but I never really thought about it at first. And they were saying like, oh, a lot of white males just react and they get upset. And I caught myself doing that because I was like, oh, I'm really getting tired of hearing all this white privilege shit.
In David Parker's testimony, Fake Book, he talks about how although he does not approve of social networking sites, they are useful for keeping in touch with friends who have moved to a different part of the country. David's views about class were shaped by his time living on Bainbridge Island. He is opposed to war, but has a respect for the men and women who serve in the military. His grandfather served in World War II and was a very influential person in his life, but he is also very aware of the fact that these wars are being fought for the benefit of major corporations.
You guys got it pretty good. I feel that war can definitely be detrimental to the people, but people fighting it are put in that position by economic struggles and not necessarily of their own choosing.
From the first day of school, I knew that I was a little different due to the ridicule of my secondhand clothing. In my testimony, I give everyone a glimpse of what it's like to grow up with very little money. With no running water and no electricity, my family was forced to get creative and find solutions to everyday tasks like bathing and having drinking water on hand. I found myself standing up for my family and my reputation, which frequently turned into violence when I was younger, but slowly morphed into being empowered verbally as I became an adult. With a lot of hard work and a refusal to take outside financial help, my family found themselves hunting and gardening to provide healthy food for us. My mother's nonconformist and anti-consumer ideologies of healthy eating and lifestyle instilled values within me of self-respect, hard work, and a desire for independence, and a subversive, self-sufficient lifestyle of urban pastoralism.